Nick Saban, the head coach, the legendary head coach, the Hall of Fame head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide. He wants more parity in college football. He says unionize it. Welcome to episode 229 of College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football, and if you do as well, if you need just a little bit of extra college football content to get you through the days, to get you through the nights, subscribe to our ever-growing fast channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Let's not waste any more time. Nick Saban, he's sounding a lot like, well, your host, Greg Pflugar. We don't have quite the same resume, but we're sounding the same here. I think one of us is being a little bit hypocritical, and I'm not pointing the finger at myself. Alabama's Nick Saban says college football faces imbalance of power if NIL spending goes unchecked. Really? Brent Zwerenman, staff writer, the Texas Sports Nation. Destin, Florida, the college football coach who's won more national titles than anyone else, is calling for more parity. More parity in the sport at this week's SEC spring meetings. It needs to be the same for everyone, Alabama coach Nick Saban said of what he calls the growing disparity of the game. I think that's better than what we have now, because what we have now is some states and some schools and some states that are investing a lot more money in terms of managing the rosters. I think this is going to create a real competitive disadvantage for some in the future. Well, Nick Saban, you have woken up. There has been real competitive disadvantage in college football for decades. For decades. We'll get to that. I'll get to my comments at the end of this article. I want you to get to your comments. Please put down your comments in the comments section. I read them all. It's going to be very interesting what you all have to say. And it's going to create an imbalance in the competitive nature of the sport, and that's not good for the sport. Saban, who's been the head coach at Toledo, Michigan State, LSU, and Alabama, and the NFL's Miami Dolphins, cited the NFL's approach to trying to create parity as a model for college football. Everything they do in the NFL is to create what? Parity, Saban said, of what Webster's define as the state of being equivalent. If the NFL could have everybody going in the 17th week of the season at 8-8, that would be a dream for the NFL. Every team would be watching. Every fan would be watching their team to see if they get into the playoffs. Again, these are all Nick Saban's words from Alabama. Saban, 71, cited two schools in Lone Star State and another in California as three programs spending inordinate amounts of money via NIL, name, image, and likeness, to create disparity in college football. Oh my goodness, really? And that hasn't been going on for decades, not in terms of NIL, but allegedly money bags full of cash. Back to the article. The way Southern Cal, Texas, and Texas A&M are spending money, it's what you are willing to spend, Saban said. Saban has won 6 national titles at Alabama since any of those 3 programs he mentioned by name have won a national title. He's also won a national title at LSU in 2003, and his 7 total are more than any other college football coach in history at the sport's top level, no doubt about it. Saban, a legend at his own level. Nick Saban. The NCAA in the summer of 2021 began allowing its athletes to benefit financially from NIL, and Saban believes guardrails should be in place to keep programs on more level ground. A&M Athletic Director Ross Bjork this week responded to Saban, mentioning A&M as a big spender on the NIL front. We said in the beginning we're going to embrace all of it, Bjork said. We're going to embrace fundraising, ticket sales, sponsorships, and NIL supporting our student athletes. We have not been able to directly involve in NIL based on Texas state law, and that law is now going to change. It will allow the institutions to support the athletes even more so we can be more involved in it. When somebody makes a comment, it's hearsay. They don't have any data. We have the data, and we know what our athletes have earned in the past 2 years. Bjork, as he previously mentioned, said A&M athletes in all sports have made more than $10 million via NIL in the past 2 years. There are no cut and dry financial comparisons to other athletic departments because divulging how much athletes have made via NIL is not required. Does anybody know? No one really knows, Bjork said. Bjork added of A&M being considered a big spender by Saban and others. If you look at the investment in facilities, if you look at what our fans and our donors and former students are doing all across campus, people know that A&M folks are passionate. We want to embrace all of it. And finally, in this article, we'll take it as a compliment if we get lumped in with those other programs. That means our folks are engaged. We can appreciate and embrace that. Saban also said he has no problem with making athletes employees and with the leagues, universities sharing profits. Now, we have said since episode number 1, August 10th of 2022 was our manifesto that this was happening. Student athletes were going to become employees of the schools. They're going to be getting direct compensation from the conference schools or both going forward at some point. It's the reason why Texas and Oklahoma made the jump to the SEC. It's the reason that USC called the Big Ten. It's the reason why you're seeing all these schools trying to better position themselves for the changing guard of college football and of college sports. Student athletes becoming employees of either their school or their separated athletic department. We don't quite know how it's going to look. Now, there's some hypocrisy here, right? Nick Saban talking about being nervous about the unequal playing field between Alabama and maybe some states in Texas and USC. Most schools have been facing that for years and decades because not all schools were allegedly, once again, I'll use the words allegedly, passing around bags of cash with bagmen going all over the country to induce student athletes, the best ones, to come to the university to play some football. Not all schools were doing that practice, allegedly. So it's always been an unequal playing field. Now, going forward, we have peek around the corner. We believe it's not going to be quite the NFL model. We look at it as more of as an MLB model, Major League Baseball. Yes, there's going to be guardrails. Yes, we student athletes are going to have to sign some sort of contracts, collective bargaining agreement, players being represented, schools and conferences being representative, coming to the table, some type of agreement. Student athletes will have to sign some sort of contract, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year contract, possible some free agency, the transfer portal involved in those negotiations. All that's going to be decided at the negotiation table with all the parties being representative. But we believe it's going to form into some sort of Major League Baseball. You're going to have the New York Yankees. You're going to have the New York Yankees and you're going to have the Minnesota Twins, right? Alabama is going to spend more on its players than many other schools out there in the country. It's not going to be a salary cap, a hard cap, salary cap for each of the FBS schools. We don't believe that's what's going to happen. And of course, there's not going to be a draft. It just isn't going to be a draft. Student athletes are going to have the same rights as students. Pick their school, choose their school to go to across the country. Unless at some point they completely separate the athletic department, the football team from the university, a complete separation. We don't see that happening for years and years and years and years, but you never know. So we think there's going to be some disparity no matter what you do. But what we agree with Nick Saban on is there does need to be guardrails, especially around the tampering issue. And that's why student athletes signing a 1, 2 year, 3 contract, that's going to help the sport. Because when Nick Saban says the NFL wants parity, what the NFL wants and what college football wants, that college football will never be able to get to the NFL level in this regards. What they want to sell is competition. That is what we're watching when we're watching college football. Besides the pageantry, besides the history, besides the great student athletes that are playing the sport, the fun, the excitement, the drama, we're watching competition. And the more competition you can get into the system, the better it is for the fans, the more eyeballs you will get on the product, better for the universities, the programs, and the student athletes who will get the money compensation because more eyeballs are on the product. So competition, anything you can do to increase the competition in college football, that's what the NFL has mastered. That's what college football won't be able to master, but it will, I believe, get better at creating more competition. Parity, not so much. More competition, I think so. Give me your thoughts in the comment section below the video. Let me know. Was Nick Saban being a little hypocritical? I think he was. But I do think, more or less, he's nailing it here in this article. Alabama, not being able to keep up with some of the other schools in spending. Well, welcome to our world here. Minnesota Golden Gophers and many other programs and fan bases across the country. Until next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.